Okay, you saw us debark the hickory bark, and that peeled right off. It peeled right off. But this is maple, and it needs a draw knife. And the draw knife peels right off with the draw knife. So what I do is I take off while it's strapped like this, half of it, and then I'll flip it over on the other half and take the rest of it off. So look how it comes off. See? Comes right off. Okay, instead of using the bevel side, I'm using the bevel side down. See? The bevel side down. So it don't dig in. Okay? Okay, now that I got this part, I'm going to flip it over and I'll show you with the other half. Okay, now that we flipped it over, you can see I started bevel side down. Just the reason the bevel side down, we don't want to dig into the wood. You can see the sapwood underneath, okay? Right, looks good, right? Okay, you can see now that's cleaned up. This has a little crack in the end here. I made these logs long enough. This is going to be a shorter bow. You can see up here it starts to twist. I'll have to measure it out. Make the limb up here. And I'm going to probably recurve this one. So it will be, it'll work out. But it looks good. I got 2 more to do. Okay, we got 4 maple staves that range from, they're all about one or two is 70 and the other 2 like 72 inches. So hopefully I can get 1 bow out of each one. Okay, so here I am the next morning after I had scraped with the draw knife most of the bark off of here. And what I did was I bought this rod, the sharpening rod, off of eBay. And what I did was I used it. It's a metal sharpening rod. I put this cabinet scraper in the vise and I used this back and forth like this here to make sure I got a nice burr on it. And look, it really works good. So what I'm going to do today is, this is the better stave out of some of them. What I'm going to do is clean this up nice. And the maple that's here, a friend dropped off. And what it is it's a Norway maple. And supposedly it's not the greatest for making bows. And the Norway maple is kind of an invasive species from when I did research on it. But since I'm going to fire harden this, and I want to try fire hardening some different local woods, there's a lot of these around. We're going to clean this up, lay it out, trim it. And once we trim it and shape it, we're going to put it on a backset jig. We're going to heat it up, put it on a backset jig with a heat gun. And then we're going to fire harden it over coals. And we'll see what happens. If it breaks, it breaks. If it don't, it don't. If it don't, and we made a really nice bow, we succeeded in the experiment. With the experiment, all right? So once again, Norway maple, and we're going to clean it up. Get back to you. Still a lot of cleaning up with the draw knife. Once again, the bevel side goes down. I got all the heavy bark off last night, and that's what my goal was. Well, like I said, I have the cabinet scraper for touching up, and I'm all done here. This part really is the part that requires the most time and patience, besides tillering. But once we get a bow laid out and trimmed, then you feel like you're on your way. Just want to show you, I have this little scrap piece of wedge here that I put underneath. And this allows me to get this stave upright the way I want it. Okay, I'm going to flip it around and clean up this other end, and we're going to determine where the center is. Okay, this is the final end here. This stave is really cleaning up nicely. I won't bore you with me finishing this up, but when I'm done, I'll show you how we're going to decide where the center of this is. Looking really good, looking really good. Okay, you can see the knots here, a little roughness there, so this will be my stave right here. This is going to be it. This is going to be the layout. So I'll clean this up, this area a little better with this curved cabinet scraper. Just a little bit. Spend some time here with it. Okay? And I'll get back to you. I'm going to find the center first, and then we're going to do the layout. This is the center. Fade out here, there's a little knot off to the side here. Looking at the angle, see where it's got to go. Growth rings. Remember, the edges are tapered, so you want to kind of square it off at the handle. You want to make sure we're away from the knots and everything enough. We have enough room to work with. Kind of go by feel a little too. We're moving over just a hair. Using a sapwood for the backing. There we go. We got a line that we're going to go along. Okay, tapered at the last 10 inches of the limbs. This is just a rough cut. Now I got to remove the heavy material from the limbs, leaving the handle area with the fade outs, which I can, you don't get too crazy in a bandsaw. You could use your whatever you're going to use, power tools, chisel. You can always chisel them out. Okay. So that's the next step. I got it narrowed. Now I'm going to take off the heavy material. And that's where you can mess up. If you're not careful and you cut a little into this, or when you're cutting it, if this is cutting crooked, one side's going to be really thin, one side's going to be really thick. So if you're going to use other than a draw knife to bring it down, and you're going to use some kind of power tool, that's where you can make a mistake, and you got to be real careful. Otherwise, you got to start all over again. Okay, so I used the bandsaw carefully, and I drew a line for 5/8, and then that's more than enough. You know, I'm going to take it down. You'll see, like, you know, it's not perfect, but I'm going to take it down on the belt sander, and I'm actually going to go into these fade outs with the belt sander, so I don't have to worry about screwing it up or making a hinge here, okay, on here. So that's the next step. Feels like I got a bow. It's very dense wood. Can't really even, so hard to see even a growth ring. It's so tight. And I just have a good feeling that I'm gonna make a nice bow out of this. But we'll see, you know. A good bow is 9/10 broken. I'm hoping it don't break, but it's definitely worth a shot making it, because something tells me this one, after I fire harden it, I'm gonna fire harden it good. I think it's gonna be an excellent bow. Okay, I know it's gonna be a little noisy, but I just want to show you how I bring the lines down for the fade outs. Got to be very careful. You don't want to create a hinge. So I only go down, and I made this really, this is really thick. This is, you can't floor tiller it. You know, I made it 5/8, and I'm going to take down the thickness, but I make it thick when I cut it on a bandsaw, and I'm careful not to make mistakes. But even when you're careful, you could trim if it's angled a little bit, one side thinner than the other, and that gives me a little wiggle room. I'd rather spend an extra hour or use another belt on a belt sander to take it down and be safe and not have an accident and take off too much, all right, or create a hinge. So that's all. I just want to show you, I kind of bring it in and I make sure this is level. I don't do this where it's going to create a hinge, all right? Okay, shortly into sanding this, I realized that it was so thick that it would have took forever. So I drew a line, and very carefully, as I was looking at the back of the bow to make sure it was level, I trimmed off another 1/8 or so inch off of this. And then I spent another hour or so sanding it down. I got the slightest little bit of movement here now. Okay, and I may do a few more strokes. And what I may do next, I guess, some point tonight, get the backset jig out. Put it on the backset jig, clamp the middle, start heating it up with a heat gun and clamping it down to the backset jig. And then when I have a chance, my wife's having friends over tomorrow, but when I have a chance, I'm going to fire harden it, and then we're going to tiller it and see what kind of bow we get out of this Norwegian Maple. That's an invasive species, and something tells me it's going to be a good bow as long as I take my time with it. So as you can see, it's going not much, so I'm going to take, you know, 10-15 strokes off of each side. Well, I got it floor tillered, sanded, the edges around it. It's ready to be put on a backset jig later tonight. It's still very stout, but I want to leave enough meat for tillering, and we're going to fire harden this. My wife's got friends coming over tomorrow for a barbecue, so I'll have to wait till after that, and then I'll sit out there and cook it slow and low and long with charcoals over my rain gutter. Okay, so that's next. Fire harden, backset, then fire hardening in a couple of days, and tillering. And it looks so nice. The grain's tight, looks so nice. I hope it holds up, but we'll see. The perfect bow is 9/10 broken, they say. I'm hoping this one makes it. Okay, it's been two very long, hard days worth of work. Yesterday was splitting the log into 4 staves and taking off the majority of the bark. Today was finishing cleaning up a nice stave and drawing a layout, shaping it, taking it to the bandsaw and trimming it. Once I got it trimmed and thickness shaped, I started to floor tiller it using the belt sander and drawing lines, parallel lines along the limbs to take it down a little bit at a time. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put this on a backset jig, which this is, and we're going to get it to bend like the opposite direction that the bow would normally bend. And we're going to heat treat it. First we're going to heat treat it with a heat gun, and that'll help remove some of the moisture and help it set. And then I'm going to put angle iron clamps on each end of this board, and we're going to cook it over coals 3 hours each limb. We're going to do half a limb at a time. What I have here is a moisture meter, and this is just a brand new fresh cut tree. And it's 16.7. It's reading 16.7 in the handle. 16.4 in the limb. 16 in the other limb. Okay? So there's a lot of moisture, fresh cut. So what we're going to do is, a lot of people, you see them, they have these backset jigs, and what they do is they clamp the riser section, the handle on, and next thing you know, they force it down and they're clamping it. Well, we're going to use a heat gun today. We're going to take our time. The only clamp that's facing me, because it has to connect on the table, is this one on the riser handle. And I'm going to go back and forth like 1 inch high down to this furthest clamp. And I'm going to do this for like 10 minutes at least. And this is going to get hot and soft, and I'll be able to tighten it up and bring it down without stressing or cracking the fibers of the wood. All right, we want to do it a little at a time. No forcing and then heating it. And this will do 2 things. It'll start drying out the wood. It'll soften the wood first, allow us to clamp it, and then it'll start drying it out. So enough of the talk. This is tight, snug, we won't say tight. This one here, I was able to snug it down without pressure. Okay, it's snug, you see it's snug. And then what I'm going to do is heat this end up, clamp it, then I'm going to heat the other end up. I'll show you as I'm going. Just going to take a second to show you, and then I'm going to shut the camera off again. And this boring thing that I'm doing, I'm going to do for 10 minutes on here and then the end, okay? Just going to dry it out, heat the wood up, soften it, allow it to be pliable enough to clamp to the jig without cracking it, and hopefully it'll take that set. Okay, I heat treated this and got it as set as flush as I could. And it took over half an hour on each side, and I even heat treated this riser handle section. And this is part of my fire hardening process too. Because if I take a moisture reading now, it reads 0. 0 in the handle, 0 in the limbs, okay, 0. It's like we heated up the moisture out, and this was like 16. I'm sure there's some moisture in here. The lowest reading, if it says 0, it could be 5% moisture on that, in this wood. But I'm done. I'm going to bring it in the house, set it up in the corner, and let it acclimate to the moisture content in the air. And then in the next couple of days, I'm going to fire harden it. But that's it for tonight. A lot of hard work for 2 days. And, you know, hopefully it'll work out.